PolySign is an early-stage fintech company, and Linqto provides private investments for companies. And with me is Joe Endoso of Linqto, and then also Jack McDonald, the CEO of PolySign. So great to have you. And let's just start with PolySign and explain what the company is and what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to tell our story. PolySign is a early stage company, and we're providing infrastructure for institutions to access digital assets, which include cryptocurrencies and other types of assets that can be fractionalized or digitized or tokenized.
So who would your clients be then?
So our clients are institutions. Specifically, we don't support retail customers.
So that would be like
that could be a crypto native hedge fund.
Okay.
It could be a pension or an endowment that might own some crypto or different types of digital assets. And we have three underlying businesses. We have a custody business, which is very much in vogue right now, given the SEC recent pronouncements around that. We have a fund administration business, so we do accounting and reporting for institutions who invest in this space. And then we also have a bit of a skunk work project called AtomicNet, which is really a play into allowing settlement of a broad range of digital asset transfers between different counterparties.
So what all digital assets then do you involve yourself in?
So we support the first bucket, if you will, of digital assets would be cryptocurrencies. So everything from the Bitcoin, Ethereum on down. There's literally thousands of them that one could invest in. The future that we think is actually quite bright, that has a lot of momentum behind it right now, is around tokenization of traditional assets. So it could be a private company share. NASDAQ has an initiative around NASDAQ private markets, where rather than investing in a traditional equity or venture capital like approach, you could actually have a tokenized interest, a fraction of our company that could ultimately trade on an exchange. And it's something that we've been talking to Joe and the folks at Linqto about.
An NFT, really.
NFTs basically certainly fall into that bucket, yeah.
So Joe, talk a little bit about the relationship between Linqto and PolySign.
We were super invested in, have been in the digital asset space, but as an investor in that space, we also saw a lot of the shortcomings as that market was developing. And specifically, it was clear to us that there were certain aspects of the market structure in digital assets that needed improving. So we sought to find a company that had solutions for those perceived problems that we saw in that marketplace. And Jack can speak to the specifics, but we felt very, very strongly that PolySign was it, that they were solving for a lot of the things that were missing in that market, in which the absence of which became quite evident with the recent failures of some of the big crypto players. FTX is probably the one that the public knows most about. There were a couple of smaller ones, but there have been a string of these, and one of the common causes was a lack of these of fundamental infrastructure in digital asset markets. So Jack and his company, we felt, had the strongest technical solutions that were also regulatorily compliant, which is the other important aspect.
Okay, yeah, and I was actually going to bring that up a little bit. So, because regulation is kind of still very vague in this area. So I assume that's one of the pitfalls or things that, you're still, what are the challenges?
There's a lot of questions you just asked there. So certainly regulatory clarity is something that the industry has been wanting. And I think if you look at a lot of the black eyes that the crypto industry specifically suffered in 2022, there's a common theme in all of them, which is a lack of regulation. There are many companies in the space like ours that are heavily regulated. We have a trust company license from the New York Department of Financial Services. We're registered with FinCEN as a money services business. We have a bunch of state money transmitter licenses. So we like regulation because we think it's a gating item before institutions in a more wholesale way really invest into the space, and it will increase adoption. The SEC, without getting into the weeds, last week or 2 weeks ago, came out with proposed rule changes to the Investment Advisor Act and the custody rules specifically around what it would take for institutions to invest in this space, both for cryptocurrencies and other types of digital assets. And so there's a lot of conversations happening right now around what would need to change, or what a given company would need to meet in terms of criteria to support institutions. We're quite excited because it really validates the business model that we've set up in terms of being a qualified custodian, segregation of duty between exchanges and custodians and whatnot. And So watch the space, as they say, but I think you're going to see a lot more.
It seems like there's a lot happening and potentially could happen. So, Jack, how do you avoid conflict of interest in what you do?
Yeah, so we set our business up specifically to only focus on custody. And as I like to say, boring is the new sexy here, in that all we do is offer custody and related services. We're not an exchange, we don't lend, we don't borrow, we don't trade, we don't market make, we don't provide margin. And there are companies in our sector that do all of those things under one umbrella. And Chairman Gensler has come out and spoke about the perceived and actual conflict there. And I think the regulators are increasingly going to see that approach. In the same way that NASDAQ in traditional finance does not provide custodial services, and BNY Mellon and State Street and Northern don't provide exchange services. We think that that's the way that this ultimate industry is going to evolve.
Okay, and we'll just Joe, any final thoughts?
Yes, as I said, PolySign is one of the most exciting investments I think we've made. And if you're somebody that believes in the future of the digital asset space, but also believes that there's some incredible infrastructure that's necessary to make that space grow and have institutions adopt it, then take a look at PolySign, because you'll be able to invest in them on the Linqto platform.
Thank you so much. Joe and Jack, thank you.
Thank you.